There are moments in life when the loudest apology is silence. When someone cannot meet your eyes, you don't need to ask for explanations. The truth is already there in the way they turn away. This is the quiet burden of shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt is a recognition of wrongdoing, a voice that says, "I have done wrong." Shame, however, is deeper. It whispers, "I am wrong." And when that whisper becomes too heavy, it steals something from a person, the ability to face those they have wronged. The Stoics taught that we cannot control the actions of others. We cannot force them to feel remorse. We cannot demand them to make things right. But nature, in its quiet justice, often plants a seed of consequence inside the soul of the wrongdoer. That seed grows into a discomfort that no court can sentence. No jail can hold the discomfort of seeing the person they betrayed and being unable to look at them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In moments when someone's eyes dart away from yours, remember this. Their avoidance is not your weakness, it's their sentence. They carry a punishment you did not need to impose. If you have been wronged, resist the urge to chase vindication. Vindication may never arrive in the form you expect. But sometimes, you will see it quietly in the way someone's voice trembles when they greet you, or in the way they choose the far side of the room, just to avoid your presence. This is the unspoken confession. Your task is not to ensure they suffer. Your task is to ensure you do not become bitter. You remain as you were, upright, dignified, unshaken. The Stoics understood that holding resentment is like grasping a burning coal. You burn yourself before you harm another. Let their shame be theirs. Let your peace be yours. A person can wear a mask of confidence. They can pretend nothing happened. They can speak loudly, laugh loudly, and act as if they've moved on. But the human soul cannot lie to itself forever. When they cannot face you, when their eyes betray them, when words fail. You are witnessing the silent trial, the one inside their conscience. Some will try to escape it. Some will drown it in distractions, in noise, in busyness. But when the night is quiet, when the lights are off, they are left with themselves. And in that solitude, shame sits beside them, uninvited but unshakable. There's a strange thing about shame. It doesn't need witnesses to exist. Even if no one else knows what they did, they know. And the mind, it does not let go so easily. They might try to smile in passing. They might offer casual words. But the truth is, every glance your way is a mirror. And mirrors do not lie. Philosophical depth. The Stoics remind us the greatest battles are fought within. You may think they've escaped justice because there was no trial, no punishment, no public reckoning. But that's the illusion. Every day they wake up, they carry the quiet weight of knowing. And knowing is heavy. They avoid your eyes because your eyes are a reminder. A reminder of the moment they crossed a line they can't uncross. A reminder of who they pretended to be, and who they truly are. Cinematic imagery for slow visuals. Picture them. Standing across the room, scanning the space, and choosing to look anywhere but you. Picture the way their voice catches when forced to speak your name. These are small cracks, but cracks spread. The facade is breaking. And you didn't have to lift a hand. Inner mastery, bringing it back to the viewer. The test for you is not whether they feel shame, that is their path. Your test is whether you remain steady. Do you become consumed by the idea of their punishment? Or do you walk forward, free from the chains of revenge? Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." What happened to you may have been unjust, but how you respond now will decide if you remain whole. There is a certain dignity in letting silence speak for you. You don't chase them. You don't beg for acknowledgement. You don't rehearse the speech you'll deliver if they finally admit the truth. Instead, you simply live. You live in such a way that your integrity cannot be questioned. You live so fully that their absence from your gaze is a footnote, not a headline. Understand this: a person can avoid your eyes, but they cannot avoid themselves. And no matter where they go, they will always take themselves with them. That is the inescapable prison. So let them look away. Let them shuffle past you. Let them keep their distance. Because every time they do, you are watching justice happen. And it requires nothing from you but stillness. There's something almost poetic about the way life balances itself. We often think of justice as a courtroom, a verdict, a punishment handed down by someone in authority. But life has its own form of justice. It doesn't always come quickly. It doesn't always come loudly. But it comes. When someone cannot look you in the eye, it is because something inside them has shifted. They are no longer the person they were when they wronged you. They are fractured even if they try to hide it. Change people walking past each other in the street. They may walk among friends. They may laugh in public. But there is a moment, perhaps only a second long, when they are reminded. A glance. A memory. A flash of guilt. And that moment is enough to darken their entire day. Seneca once wrote, "He who has done evil is always afraid." Not afraid of you, but afraid of the truth that follows them like a shadow. And shadows never leave. Your task is not to point out their shame. Your task is not to drag them into the light. Your task is to remain unshaken. Because when you stay composed, when you keep your dignity, their avoidance speaks louder than any confession. You don't have to win the argument. You don't have to replay the past. You simply let reality do the work. Cinematic metaphor, slow, atmospheric music behind. Think of a still lake. When disturbed, it ripples, distorts, loses its reflection. But when calm, it reflects everything perfectly. You must be that lake, steady, clear, undisturbed. They will see themselves in you, and they may not like what they see. Long, reflective beat. And here is the truth. Sometimes, their shame will not change them. Sometimes, it will not lead to apology, or reconciliation, or growth. But that's not your responsibility. The Stoics remind us that we own our actions, not the outcomes. If their shame teaches them nothing, that is their failure, not yours. Turning the lesson into empowerment. Do not let their silence make you small. Do not let their shame trick you into thinking you are unworthy of being faced. The inability to meet your gaze is not a sign of your weakness, it's proof of your strength. It means that your presence, your truth, your integrity, still has power. Deep, steady voice closing the loop. And so, when they cannot face you, remember this. They carry a weight you do not have to lift. They live with a voice you do not have to hear. They fight a battle you do not have to enter. Walk away with your head high. Walk away without bitterness. Walk away, knowing that their quiet shame is not your burden. It is theirs. And they will carry it, for as long as it takes. In life, there are wounds you cannot see. Not every scar is on the skin. Some live in the mind. And some live in the soul. When they cannot meet your eyes, it is not simply a social gesture. It is the body's way of protecting the mind from the pain of truth. The gaze is powerful. It connects two human beings more deeply than words ever could. And in that moment of connection, they fear what might be reflected back at them. They fear your memory. They fear your steadiness. They fear that if they look too long, they might see the version of themselves they wish didn't exist. The Stoics would tell us, do not depend on their acknowledgement. Do not wait for the day they finally admit the wrong. Because that day may never come. And if you build your peace on that hope, you will wait forever. Instead, you build your peace on something immovable. Your own conduct, your own virtue, your own unshakable presence in the face of their absence. Imagine a mountain. The wind can howl around it. The rain can fall for days. The seasons can change again and again. But the mountain remains. That mountain is what you must become. When they glance up and see you there unbroken, unchanged, the shame returns. It is not loud. It is not violent. But it is there, and it does not leave them. Philosophical weight. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. You do not need to declare your innocence. You do not need to prove your worth. You live it. Every day. In the way you stand. In the way you speak. in the way you refuse to let their actions turn you bitter. And here's the truth that unsettles them most. You are not chasing them. You are not seeking revenge. You have simply outgrown them. And nothing reveals a person's shame faster than realizing they no longer have a place in your life. When they cannot face you, you may feel a twinge of sadness. Not because you miss them, but because you realize how far they've fallen from who they could have been. But the Stoics would warn you, do not mistake pity for responsibility. You are not here to carry their guilt. You are not here to heal a wound they refuse to acknowledge. You are here to live according to your nature, with courage, wisdom, and temperance. So you walk on, eyes forward, back straight, not because you are trying to appear strong, but because you are strong. And if, in passing, they look away, know this: that look away is the truest admission you will ever get. There is a Roman tale of a man named Cato the Younger. Known for his integrity, he stood against corruption even when it cost him everything. Cato did not chase down those who betrayed him. He did not beg them to see reason. He stood firm, living in such a way that their own actions became their torment. The Stoics understood something we forget today. You cannot force another person to face themselves. But life has a way of making them do it eventually. Streets, a lone figure walking away. And sometimes, the harshest punishment is not a public reckoning. It is the quiet knowing that they can never again stand before you without feeling the weight of what they've done. We are conditioned to believe that justice must be seen, that wrongs must be shouted from rooftops, that apologies must be given in grand gestures. But look closer. True justice often happens where no one is watching. In the quiet moments before sleep. In the instant they see your face in a crowd. In the weight on their chest when they remember your kindness and realize how little they deserved it. Do not underestimate the power of your restraint. To speak might bring you a moment of satisfaction, but to remain silent allows their own mind to do the speaking for you. It will speak in their dreams. It will speak in their pauses. It will speak in the way they avoid the places you might be. And over time, those small avoidances become a cage. When you let them live in that cage, you are not being cruel. You are simply refusing to share in their burden. Their shame is theirs to carry. And you are free. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, live in such a way that no one will believe it." This is the essence of dignity, not in fighting every accusation, but in building a life so clean, so steady, that truth needs no defense. And so, when their eyes drop, when they turn away, when they choose the long road just to avoid crossing your path, you do not need to call after them. You do not need to demand answers. You already have them. And here's the part the world rarely tells you. One day, you may not even notice them looking away. One day, you will pass them without a flicker of thought. Because the moment you stop caring whether they face you or not, is the moment you are truly free. There is a story about an old philosopher who once had a student betray him. The student took his teachings, his trust, and used them for selfish gain. When the two crossed paths years later, the student could not lift his head. The philosopher did not speak. He did not scold or remind him of the past. He simply walked on. Those who witnessed it thought the silence was nothing. But the student later admitted that the absence of words hurt far more than any condemnation. Because in that silence, he had to face himself. This is what many fail to understand. You are not responsible for dragging truth out of another person. They already carry it within them. And truth, like a seed, will grow whether you tend it or not. Some will try to bury it under distractions, work, or new relationships. But when they see you, that seed breaks the surface, whether they want it to or not. You might wonder if they think about you often. You might wonder if they regret it. The truth is, they may spend years pretending not to. But every human being has moments they cannot outrun. When the noise fades. When they are alone. When their mind replays the things they wish they could erase. You do not need to be in those moments for them to feel your presence. You do not need to confront them for their conscience to do its work. And when they cannot face you, you are seeing the visible crack in the wall they've built around themselves. Some people will spend the rest of their lives avoiding certain streets, certain names, certain memories. They will think it is easier that way. But in truth, they are shrinking their world piece by piece. Every avoidance is a quiet admission. Every lowered gaze is a silent confession. Your power lies in not chasing it, in not needing it, in not building your own peace on whether they ever own up to the past. Because the moment your peace depends on their apology, you give them control over your future. And that is something the Stoics would never allow. So you continue forward. Not to prove them wrong. Not to show them you are stronger. But because your life is too valuable to waste in the shadow of what they did. Let them look away. Let them carry it. Let them live with the echo of the moment they lost the right to meet your eyes. And so you walk. Not with the hurried steps of someone trying to escape the past, but with the steady pace of someone who has accepted it. The air feels lighter when you are no longer carrying the weight of forcing them to understand. Their understanding, their regret, their shame, these are not your possessions. They belong to them, and to them alone. They may tell themselves stories to soften the truth. They may rewrite the past in their minds so it feels less cruel. But every time your paths cross, reality breaks through the fiction. It only takes a second, a glance, an unspoken recognition that no matter how much they rewrite, the ending will always be the same. Some will avoid you forever, thinking distance is freedom. But distance is not freedom when it is born from fear. It is a chain disguised as choice. They cannot face you because your presence is a mirror, and no one likes seeing a reflection they cannot admire. You don't need to stand in judgment. You don't need to carry resentment like a banner. The Stoics would tell you that resentment ties you to the offender just as much as guilt ties them to you. To be free, you must let go, not of the truth, but of the need for their acknowledgement of it. Life will hand them reminders. In a stranger's voice. In a phrase they once heard you say. In a place you once stood together. The reminders will come unannounced and unwelcomed, and they will feel the same quiet discomfort they feel when they see you. That is the life they chose when they acted without honor. You chose differently. You chose to stand with your back straight, your eyes forward, your spirit unbroken. And that choice is worth more than any apology. Because apologies can be empty. But living in alignment with your own values, that is real, that is lasting, and that is something no one can take from you. One day, you will pass them, and you won't notice if they looked away. You won't notice if they froze, or swallowed hard, or felt their pulse quicken. You will be too busy living. And in that moment, without realizing it, you will have achieved the purest form of freedom. Not freedom from them, but freedom from the need for them to face you at all. Time has a way of revealing what people truly are. It strips away the performances, the practiced smiles, the carefully chosen words. What's left is the essence, the part they can't disguise when they're caught off guard. And nothing catches a person off guard more than suddenly standing before the one they wronged. They may plan their life so it never happens. They may change their habits, their routes, even their friends, to avoid that moment. But life does not work according to their plans. One day, the world will place them in front of you without warning. It might be on a street corner, in a store aisle, or at a gathering neither of you could predict. And in that instant, all their careful avoidance will collapse. They will see you, not just the person you are now, but the person they once hurt. And their body will react before their mind can catch up. The eyes will drop. The voice will falter. The posture will change. That is the truth surfacing, uninvited and undeniable. You won't have to say a word. The silence between you will speak volumes, and the louder they try to pretend it means nothing, the more it will consume them later. For shame is not something you can simply push away. It waits for you. It follows you. It grows in the quiet spaces of the mind, in the stillness of the night, in the moments when there is nothing to distract you from yourself. And while they carry that weight, you carry something else entirely: clarity. You have faced the pain, you have accepted it, and you have moved forward. The wound may have left a mark, but it no longer bleeds. You can stand in front of them without fear, without trembling, without looking away. That strength is not just victory, it is a testament to the life you have built beyond them. You see, the inability to meet someone's gaze is rarely about that person. It is about the self. About what we see reflected back when we dare to look. And when they cannot look at you, what they are truly avoiding is themselves. And so they retreat into the safety of avoidance. They tell themselves it's better not to stir the past, better to move on quietly. But moving on quietly is not the same as moving on freely. Their freedom is an illusion, one they cling to in the hope that it will feel real if they believe it long enough. Still, there will always be reminders. A familiar scent drifting from a passerby. A certain tone of voice in a stranger's laugh. A phrase spoken in the same cadence you once used. Small things, yet each one is a thread pulling them back to a moment they would rather forget. They can try to cut those threads, but there are too many, woven into too much of life itself. So they live carefully, almost cautiously, though they will never admit why. It's the price of a conscience that has been marked. You, on the other hand, no longer have to live that way. You walk through the world without avoiding certain streets, without lowering your head in passing, without shrinking in the presence of memory. Your life is not built around avoidance, it is built around purpose. And that difference is everything. The Stoics would tell you that your duty is to your own virtue, not to the punishment of others. When you stay true to yourself, when you live each day without compromising who you are, you have already won. Even if they never admit it, even if they never speak a word about what they feel, the truth is not diminished. They carry it with them, every day, everywhere. It colors their choices. It shapes their silences. It dictates the routes they take, the words they don't say, the moments they let pass without reaching out. And though you may not see it, though you may never know the full measure of their burden, it exists all the same. The eyes that cannot meet yours are proof. The hesitation in their step is proof. The quiet tension in the air between you is proof. You do not need anything more. Because in the end, their shame is not your responsibility to manage, it is the shadow they will walk with for the rest of their life. And so you grow. Not in spite of what happened, but because of it. The hurt that once felt like a weight has been forged into something different. A quiet strength that no one can see at first glance, but that shapes every step you take. You begin to realize that their shame is not your victory. Your victory is the fact that you no longer measure yourself by them at all. They may still think in terms of you versus them. But you've moved beyond that battlefield. While they are still turning the past over in their mind, you are building something new, something untouched by their choices. This is the part that unsettles them most. That you can live fully without their presence. That you can find joy without their validation. That your life no longer has a space reserved for their approval or their apology. The Stoics would say that this is the highest form of justice. Not revenge, not punishment, but living well in the face of what was meant to break you. Every time you wake and greet the day without bitterness. Every time you laugh without hesitation. Every time you stand tall in your truth. You are delivering a verdict far more powerful than any spoken judgment. And when your paths do cross, your calmness will speak louder than any confrontation ever could. They will see in you something they have lost, the ability to meet the world openly, without the heaviness of avoidance. That is why they cannot meet your eyes. Not because you demand it, but because deep down they know they have already sentenced themselves. You do not need to lift the gavel. You do not need to play the judge. Their own conscience has already declared the truth. And it will echo therefore as long as they live. And time will only sharpen the contrast. The longer you walk your path, the clearer it becomes that you have stepped into a life unburdened, while they remain tethered to something they cannot name out loud. It is in the way they flinch at certain conversations. How they skip over certain names. How their eyes scan a crowd with the faint hope of avoiding yours. You will notice that you think of them less and less. What was once a constant ache becomes an occasional ripple. And then, eventually, nothing at all. But for them, the story plays in reverse. At first, they may be able to push it from their mind for long stretches. But as years pass, the memories sharpen, the regrets grow heavier. and the opportunities to make it right slip further away. Life is merciless with time. What is unsaid today is harder to say tomorrow, and harder still the day after that. Eventually, they will realize there is no easy way back, only the steep, unmarked road of humility and truth. And most people will never take it. You will see them at times, perhaps unexpectedly. A glance across a busy street, a shadow in a doorway, the sound of footsteps you recognize before you even look. And in that moment, you will feel no anger, only a quiet awareness of the distance between you. A distance they created and that you no longer wish to cross. Your peace has nothing to do with their shame now. It is not built upon their suffering, but upon your decision to live untouched by it. The Stoics would call this mastery, to rise above the pull of old wounds, to live in accordance with your nature rather than in reaction to another's actions. And still, when they see you, their eyes will fall, because nothing reminds a person of their own failing quite like the presence of the one they failed. You are no longer their judge. You are simply a mirror. And when they cannot look into it, it is because the truth reflected there is more than they can bear. And so the days pass, and you keep walking your path. You learn new things, meet new people, build moments that have nothing to do with the past. Your life becomes filled with chapters they will never read, because they are no longer in the story. Each year that goes by, you realize that the distance between who you are now and who you were then grows wider. It becomes a gulf they cannot cross, not because you built walls, but because they built them for themselves. When they think of you, they do not see the whole of who you are now. They see the moment they broke something, and the echo of that moment follows them like a shadow at their heels. And shadows have a way of growing longer as the sun sets. It is not your duty to shorten that shadow. It is not your role to carry their regret or soften its weight. They may try to convince themselves that what happened was small, that you have surely forgotten, that time has washed it away. But forgetting is not the same as being free from consequence. You may forgive in your heart, but that does not erase the truth they see when they meet your gaze. You have seen the way people stiffen when confronted with the version of themselves they'd rather hide. Their shoulders tighten, their words stumble, and sometimes they pretend not to notice you at all. But pretending is only a mask, and masks always slip when silence lasts too long. The Stoics would say that your best revenge is to live in such a way that you are beyond the reach of their wrongs. When you no longer feel the need to react, you have already taken back every ounce of power the moment once held over you. Your peace is not conditional. It does not depend on their apology, or their understanding, or their ability to finally meet your eyes. And yet, every time they turn away, it is another quiet confession. Not to you, but to themselves. Because deep down, they know that what they avoid will never truly leave them. It will be there in the spaces between their thoughts, in the silences of their conversations, in the restless turning of their nights. And so it remains with them, a presence they cannot shake. Even in moments of joy, when laughter should come easily, there is a quiet thread beneath it. A tension, a pull, a whisper reminding them that not all parts of their life are clean. They may hide it well. They may learn to speak confidently, to smile on cue, to seem untouched by what they've done. But the body remembers. The mind remembers. And memory is a patient companion. They might believe that by avoiding your eyes, they can avoid the truth. But the truth does not live in your gaze alone, it lives in them. They carry it wherever they go. It waits for them in quiet rooms, in moments when the noise of the world fades, in the stillness before sleep when there is nothing to distract them from themselves. For you, those moments no longer bring heaviness. You have learned to sit in silence without fear. Your peace is not fragile. It is anchored in who you are now, not in what they did then. You walk without hesitation. And if your eyes meet theirs, you do not look away. Not to challenge them, not to shame them, but simply because you have no reason to. That is what unsettles them most. They expect bitterness. They expect a cold edge in your voice or a storm in your expression. Instead, they see calm. and calm, in the face of what they have done, is more difficult to bear than anger ever could be. The Stoics would remind you that virtue is its own reward. To act rightly, even when wronged. To live fully, even after loss. This is the path of freedom. And freedom means that their shame is no longer tied to your healing. It is a burden they must carry, whether they learn from it or not. You do not watch to see if they stumble under its weight. You do not measure your life by how they bear it. You walk on, eyes forward, while they glance down or to the side, unable to meet the horizon without feeling the shadow they've left behind. And as you continue forward, the road feels wider, the air clearer. There is no need to check over your shoulder, no need to listen for footsteps behind you. The chapter that bound you to them has closed, not with a loud final sentence, but with the quiet turning of a page. You have moved into a story they can no longer enter. They, however, still live with an unfinished page in their hands. One they keep tucked away, never daring to read aloud. It is stained with what they did, with the choices they made. And though they may pretend to forget, its presence weighs on them more than they will admit. When they see you, even from a distance, it is as if that page is pulled from their pocket and held up in the light. Every word is still there. Nothing has faded. And in that instant, they remember, not just the act itself, but the person they became in doing it. You do not need to glare. You do not need to speak. Your existence is enough to stir the truth. And truth, once awakened, has a way of echoing long after the moment has passed. The difference now is that you do not carry that echo. You have built a life where the sound no longer reaches you. Your mornings are free from the heaviness of replaying what was done. Your nights are undisturbed by questions that cannot be answered. You are no longer tethered to their choices. The Stoics knew that peace comes not from controlling others, but from mastering oneself. And mastery is evident here. You have taken what was meant to diminish you and used it to strengthen your foundation. While they shrink in your presence, you stand in your own without effort. This is why they cannot face you. Not because you remind them of pain they inflicted, but because you remind them of the person they could have been, and chose not to be. And so it lingers with them. Not like a wound that bleeds openly, but like an old scar beneath the skin. Invisible to the world, yet sensitive to the slightest touch. They can go days, even months, without thinking of it. But when your presence brushes against their life, it stirs something they thought was buried. They may try to cover it with politeness. A quick nod, a faint smile, a hurried step past you. But behind those gestures is the quiet truth. The sight of you unsettles them. Not because you seek to unsettle, but because you exist as living proof that actions echo. They might wonder if you still think of them. They might imagine your conversations with others, asking themselves if their name is ever spoken, if their story is ever told. But the reality is, you have stopped carrying their shadow. It has slipped from your hands, and now they are the only one left holding it. There's a kind of mercy in letting them walk away without pursuit. It denies them the distraction of conflict, leaving them alone with the quiet, where shame has room to speak. And shame is a patient teacher, though not all its students choose to learn. For you, the lesson was different. You learned the strength of moving on without closure, of building a life without the weight of their acknowledgement. You found that peace grows best when it is not dependent on someone else's remorse. This is the space where you now live, beyond the reach of what happened, beyond the pull of their avoidance. And each time they cannot meet your eyes, it is not a victory you need to claim. It is simply a reminder of how far you have walked, while they remain standing in the same place. And so your steps carry you farther still, while theirs seem to circle the same unchanging ground. They might convince themselves they've moved on, that they've buried the past so deep it will never surface again. But memory has roots, and those roots wind their way through everything unseen. A familiar place, a chance encounter, even the tone of a stranger's voice can pull those roots back to the surface. And when that happens, the weight returns. a heaviness in the chest, a sudden stillness in the breath, the knowledge that something between you was broken and will never be made whole. You, however, do not flinch when the past appears. You've met it face to face too many times to fear it now. It no longer has claws. It no longer bites. It has become a quiet companion, one that walks a few paces behind but never gets in the way. When they see you, they are not only reminded of what they did, but of how little it touches you now. That is perhaps the hardest truth for them to bear. That the damage they caused no longer defines you. That the story they once had a hand in has moved on without their name in it. The Stoics understood this deeply. That the truest form of strength is to be unmoved by what cannot be changed. To let go of the rope in a tug-of-war you never needed to win. And so you do not pull against them. You do not resist. You simply walk away, and the rope falls slack in their hands. They can choose to drop it too. But many won't. They will hold on, even when it burns their palms. Because letting go would mean fully facing themselves. And some people will do anything to avoid that moment. Yet each time your paths cross, each time they feel the pull of looking away, they are reminded. The burden they carry is not yours. It never was. And so life keeps unfolding, with or without their willingness to face what's inside them. Seasons change, years pass, and still, the pattern remains. They may cross your path by accident, and in that split second, the air between you will shift. A silent recognition, heavy and undeniable. You will not rush to fill that silence. You will not bend to make it easier for them. Because it is not your role to lighten a weight they chose to carry. And you understand now that some weights are not meant to be lifted by anyone but the one who created them. In time, you notice something strange. The more you live without looking back, the more their avoidance stands out not as a wound to you, but as a mirror of their own unfinished reckoning. It is almost as if their life paused in the place where yours kept moving forward. They may distract themselves with noise and motion. New friends, new routines, even new identities. But underneath, nothing has shifted. The same moment still waits for them. Unchanged, patient, ready to meet them whenever they are brave enough to stop running. For you, the moment has already passed its trial. It has been examined, felt, and released. That is why you can meet their eyes without flinching. Not because you have forgotten, but because you no longer need anything from them. Not their apology, not their explanation, not even their understanding. The Stoics would say this is freedom. To want nothing from those who wronged you, and to let their own mind be the source of their unrest. And so you remain steady, while they carry a burden they will never name aloud. They may think silence protects them, but silence is not an escape when the loudest voice is inside your own head. And that voice will always know why their eyes fall when they see you. And so the days stretch on, each one quietly recording the choices made and the ones avoided. They live within that unspoken space, where words might have bridged the gap but were never offered, where honesty could have been a key but was left unused. It is not dramatic, this kind of distance. It does not shout or demand attention. It simply exists. A quiet boundary, invisible yet impossible to cross without courage. When they catch sight of you, even from far away, it is not just you they see. They see every fork in the road where they turned away instead of stepping forward. They see the weight of every unfinished sentence, every moment they chose comfort over truth. You, on the other hand, keep moving without needing to measure their steps. You have your own roads now, your own destinations, your own life that blooms beyond their reach. And that life is not defined by their absence, it is simply defined by your presence within it. There is a strange kind of grace in this, one that comes not from forgiving or forgetting, but from releasing. Not in anger, not in triumph, but in the steady knowing that nothing more is owed, and nothing more is needed. The Stoics taught that our peace is not dependent on others' actions, but on our own alignment with what is right. And in walking your path without bitterness, you have done exactly that. Yet still, for them, the air changes when you're near. Their breath quickens just enough to notice. Their eyes move to the ground, the wall, the distance, anywhere but you. And in that moment, the truth is there in full. They are not avoiding you. They are avoiding themselves. And that, you have learned, is a prison only they can unlock. And so they keep walking in circles, never quite stepping into the space where truth lives. You pass them like a shadow passing a wall. No contact, no collision, only the faint reminder that you still exist beyond the frame of their life. The years will not dull this for them, because it is not about time. It is about the absence of reckoning. When something remains unspoken, it lingers in perfect preservation. Not aging, not fading, just waiting. They may try to outrun it with busy days and crowded rooms. They may drown it in small talk and surface-level smiles. But the silence beneath all of it hums like a low, constant note. And when they see you, that note becomes louder, impossible to ignore. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to think of clever words or exacting looks. Your presence is enough, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. And the reflection it shows them is one they would rather not face. You have long since stepped beyond that reflection. Your identity no longer revolves around what they did or didn't do. You no longer carry their story as part of your own. And this, more than anything, is what unsettles them. That they remain tangled in a chapter you have already placed back on the shelf. The Stoics would call this living in accordance with nature. To release what is beyond your control. To act with integrity. And to let others carry the weight of their own choices. And so you walk forward, steady and unshaken, while they glance away, still unable to meet the horizon with open eyes. And so the space between you is not measured in distance, but in the choices each of you has made since that silent parting. For you, each step has been toward something. A life rebuilt, a mind made lighter, a heart no longer shaped by their absence. For them, each step seems to bend back on itself, as if they walk a path that folds into the same corners again and again. They may tell themselves they've moved on, but their eyes tell a different story each time they turn away. You notice it now not with bitterness, but with a kind of detached clarity. It's simply the truth unchanging, quiet, steady. Their avoidance is no longer a wound, just an observation, like noting the way a tree leans away from a wind that passed long ago. They will carry this quiet weight in the way they shift in their seat if you're nearby, or the way their voice tightens when your name comes up. No one else may notice it, but you do. You always will. And yet, you do not hold it against them. Not because they deserve that grace, but because you no longer need to hold anything at all. You learned long ago that letting go was not for their sake. It was for yours. The Stoics would say this is the essence of control, to decide what lives in your mind, and to leave the rest outside the gates. And so you guard those gates with ease now, while they leave theirs unguarded, letting shame slip in and out as it pleases. This is why they cannot face you, not because of who you are today, but because of who they chose to be back then, and who they have yet to become since. And so life carries you forward, not in leaps and sudden bursts, but in the quiet, consistent rhythm of someone who has learned the value of steadiness. You are not chasing, you are not hiding. You are simply existing in a way that no longer bends toward their shadow. Meanwhile, they carry a shadow of their own making. It moves with them, though they pretend it is not there. It sits beside them in moments of stillness, and stirs whenever memory brushes too close. They may not name it. They may never admit it. But in the spaces between their words, it lingers. That subtle tightening of the jaw, that shift of the eyes, that fraction of a second where they decide it is safer to look past you than through you. You've stopped wondering what they think in those moments. It no longer matters. Their inner world is theirs to tend to or neglect. You've seen what happens to gardens left unattended. The weeds grow tall, the soil hardens, and eventually, nothing good takes root. Yours, in contrast, is tended with care. It has grown wide and open, full of paths and places where light reaches easily. Not every plant thrives. Not every season blooms. But the work continues. And it is your own. This is the true distance between you. Not the miles. Not the years. But the fact that you have faced yourself and they have not. And until they do, they will keep averting their gaze, as though meeting your eyes might force them to meet their own. The Stoics would call this the natural order, that a person who refuses to look inward will always be unsettled by someone who has. And so the pattern continues. You walking with calm steps into each new day, and they, glancing away, still held in place by what they will not face. And so their silence follows them like an echo, not loud enough for the world to hear, but constant enough that they cannot forget it's there. It threads through their conversations, hides in the pauses, lives in the way they cut certain stories short before they reach your name. When your presence brushes against their life, whether in a shared room or a passing street, something in them stiffens. It's not hatred. It's not even fear in the purest sense. It's recognition. A flash of the moment when they chose the easier road, knowing even then that it would lead to this. You do not need to press them for the truth. You do not need to confront them or demand an explanation. Their own conscience has been doing that work far longer than you ever could. And the strange thing about a quiet conscience is that it speaks at the most inconvenient times. In the middle of a laugh. In the middle of a meal. In the middle of an ordinary day that should feel light but suddenly feels heavy. For you, the weight has shifted. It is not something you drag behind you anymore. If it appears, it is only as a reminder. A shape in the distance that no longer slows your pace. You've learned that peace is not something they can give or take from you. It is something you've built, stone by stone, moment by moment, until it stands solid beneath your feet. They see that solidity now, and it unsettles them more than anything else, because deep down, they know you found it without their help, and perhaps in spite of them. The Stoics would say you have mastered what they call apatheia. Not apathy in the sense of indifference to life, but a steady freedom from being ruled by another's actions. And in that freedom, you have left them to face the one person they've been avoiding all along, themselves. And so the pattern persists, unseen by most, yet sharp as glass to the one who lives inside it. They move through the world as if nothing lingers. But there is a tell, always a tell. It might be the way their voice dips for a moment when your name is mentioned, or the fraction of hesitation before they agree to be somewhere you might be. These are the tiny fractures in the mask they wear, the silent admissions they will never put into words. And you've learned to see them for what they are. Not invitations to re-enter their life. Not signs of reconciliation, but proof that the truth has never left them. You do not celebrate this. You do not gloat. There is no satisfaction in knowing that shame sits on their shoulders. Instead, you feel a kind of distant understanding, as if you're watching a story you once knew well but no longer belong to. Your own life has stretched beyond the edges of that old chapter. New moments, new faces, new lessons have filled the spaces that once ached. There is no longer an empty place shaped like them. And this, more than anything, is what casts the longest shadow over them. Because while they cannot face you, you can face them without a tremor. You can meet their eyes, if they would ever offer them, and feel no need to look away. Not because the past was light, but because you have carried it far enough to set it down without regret. The Stoics would remind you that mastery is not about defeating another, but about mastering yourself. And self-mastery has made you untouchable to the weight they still bear. They may live their entire life without lifting it. They may find ways to distract themselves until the very end. But on the quietest nights, when the noise fades and the lights dim, they will feel the pull to turn inward. And they will know that the only face they cannot meet is their own. And so, even in the most ordinary of moments, the truth threads itself through their days. It is there when they pause mid-step without knowing why. It is there when a certain place, a certain voice, a certain silence makes something stir in the back of their mind. They may try to call it nothing, a trick of memory, a passing thought. But they know better. It is not nothing. It is the quiet reckoning they have delayed for so long, that it has woven itself into the fabric of their being. When you pass by, you do not slow. You do not reach for them. You simply move with the ease of someone who has learned that not every wound is yours to heal, and not every story is yours to finish. There is power in that simplicity, the kind that does not announce itself, but exists in the steady way you keep walking forward. And though you do not seek to teach them anything, your presence has become a lesson they cannot unlearn. That life moves on without their confession, without their apology, without their permission. This is what unsettles them most, that you no longer orbit the same point in time where they remain stuck. You have gone on to see other seasons, to stand in other lights, while they still live in the shadow of a choice they made long ago. The Stoics would say this is the natural cost of avoiding truth. The longer you turn from it, the heavier it becomes. And one day, they will see that the weight they carry is not yours to lift. It never was. So they keep looking away, thinking that by avoiding your eyes they can avoid their own reflection. But reflection is not something you escape by turning your head. It follows you, quietly, faithfully, until you dare to face it. And so, the reflection waits. It waits in the stillness between heartbeats, in the quiet hours before sleep, in the spaces where distraction fails. It does not chase them. It simply stands, patient as stone, knowing that one day they will run out of places to hide. They have built their life around avoiding that moment. The conversations they do not have, the letters they never send, the rooms they quietly leave when your presence enters. These are not accidents. They are the small, deliberate acts of someone guarding a door they are afraid to open. But a door unentered is not a door erased. It remains, always in the same place, always waiting for the hand that will one day reach for the handle. And every time they see you, they are reminded that the key to that door has been in their pocket all along. You no longer stand beside that threshold. You have walked far enough to find other paths, other doors, doors that lead to rooms filled with warmth and light. You do not wait for them to catch up, not out of cruelty, but out of understanding that the journey they must take is theirs alone. The Stoics would say you are living in harmony with what is, not forcing, not bending the world to your will, but accepting that some truths are not yours to deliver, and so you carry your own truth lightly, while theirs grows heavier with every step they refuse to take. In this way, their avoidance becomes its own punishment, not the loud, public kind that demands an audience, but the slow, quiet kind that lives in the mind and never truly sleeps. And still, you walk on, not toward them, not away from them, but toward the life that is yours, a life that no longer waits for eyes that cannot meet yours. And so the days fold into months, and the months into years, but the pattern remains unchanged. Your paths may cross in unexpected places, a gathering you didn't plan to attend, a street you both happened to walk, a mutual friend's voice carrying your name into their ears. Each time, the same ritual plays out. You, standing calm and unshaken, aware but not engaged. Them, shifting in the smallest of ways. Shoulders turning, eyes drifting. A subtle retreat wrapped in the appearance of indifference. It is never loud, never dramatic, yet its meaning is unmistakable. Once, long ago, you might have mistaken their avoidance for victory, that perhaps by not meeting your gaze, they were somehow winning some unspoken contest. But now you see it for what it is. Not a battle at all, but the quiet labor of a person, hauling a weight they dare not set down, lest they have to examine it in the open. They move on the surface of their life like someone crossing thin ice, carefully, quietly, avoiding sudden shifts that might cause the cracks below to rise. They busy themselves with noise, with company, with anything that keeps them from hearing the sound of their own conscience. But conscience is not a sound you can drown forever. It seeps into the spaces between the noise. A glance at an old photo, a phrase overheard that echoes too closely to the past, a memory sparked by nothing more than a scent in the air. And when it comes, it brings with it the same image. You, as you are now, untouched by their silence, walking forward without needing anything from them. This is the wound they cannot name. It is not that they wronged you, though they did, but that you healed without their help, that you found solid ground while they still paced the same old circle, that the peace they denied you is the peace you now carry like a second skin. The Stoics would tell you this is the nature of virtue, that no one can take from you what is truly yours, and that the actions of others only harm you if you let them enter your mind. You have learned this, not through study alone, but through living it, through standing in the fire long enough to know you will not burn, and so you let them pass. No accusation, no bitterness, only the quiet knowledge that their shame is a companion they have chosen, and will continue to choose, until the day they decide to turn around and meet it. And perhaps they never will. Perhaps they will live their whole life in a choreography of glances away, of conversations cut short, of doors closed before they can open. That is not your burden. It never was. Because you understand now. Facing someone else is nothing compared to facing yourself. And until they learn to do that, the simple act of looking into your eyes will remain the hardest thing they will ever be asked to do. Then let this be the final truth, the one neither of you can escape. You have already faced the fire. You stood where the air was thin, where the weight of betrayal pressed hard against your chest. And you did not run. You met the moment fully, looked it in the eye, and walked through it until it no longer defined you. They did not. They turned away. And in doing so, they locked themselves inside a prison, where the walls are built not of stone, but of moments avoided, words unsaid, and truths denied. The punishment was never yours to deliver. Life, in its quiet, unflinching way, has already done it. Each time they avert their eyes. Each time they swallow the truth they wish they could speak. Each time they see you standing steady while they remain unsettled. It is a sentence renewed. The Stoics would remind you, what matters most is not what they carry, but what you have set down. You do not need their apology to be free. You do not need their recognition to be whole. You are living proof that wounds can close without permission from the one who made them. And so, when you walk past them, whether once more or for the last time, you do so with your head high, your gaze open, and your spirit unburdened. You have learned that the greatest victory is not to make them see you, but to live in such a way that even their averted eyes cannot deny the strength you have become. In the end, they cannot face you. But you can face the world. And that will always be enough. And so, the story bends toward its quiet ending. Not the kind with applause or fanfare, but the kind that lingers long after the last word is spoken. You have walked the length of this journey, from the place where hurt felt like an unmovable mountain, to the open horizon where peace waits with steady hands. You did not arrive here by chance. You arrived because you chose to meet life as it is, without illusions, without denial, without the comfort of pretending that pain had no place in you. They took the other road, the one paved with avoidance, with the belief that if they stayed far enough from the truth, it could not touch them. But truth is not a storm you can outrun. It is the ground beneath your feet, and it waits, always waits, until the day you are forced to stand upon it. The years will keep passing. Their life will keep moving in outward ways. New places, new faces, new distractions. But inside, the same unfinished conversation will play. The same unspoken words pressing against the edges of their mind. not because you demand them, but because the soul demands what the lips refuse to give. And when the quiet comes, when the noise of the day fades and the room is still, they will feel it again. The weight of the glance they never met, the heaviness of the truth they never faced. It will be there in the darkness like a shape they cannot name, a presence that belongs not to you, but to the choices they made long ago. You, meanwhile, will sleep in peace, because you have done the work they would not. You have faced the pain, looked it squarely in the eye, and walked through it until it became part of your strength. You do not carry their burden. You do not even wish to. And that is your final freedom. The Stoics would say that the highest victory is not in conquering others, but in conquering the self. You have done this, and so you walk forward, not with bitterness, but with the calm certainty that nothing they do can take away the life you've built. One day, perhaps, they will find the courage to turn and face what they have long avoided. Perhaps they will step into that truth, not for you, but for themselves. Or perhaps they never will. It is no longer your concern, because the ending was never theirs to write. It was yours, and you have written it in the ink of self-respect, in the language of peace, and in the voice of someone who will never again bow to the weight of another's shame. And so you leave them where they stand, eyes lowered, truth unspoken, while you walk into the wide, unbroken light ahead. If this message spoke to you, let it be more than just words. Take a deep breath, stand a little taller, and carry your own peace forward. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, and if you believe in living with strength and dignity, subscribe for more Stoic-inspired wisdom. Your journey isn't over, it's just beginning.